Hello and welcome to another episode of me painting again. Oh yeah, we're painting again, and I have my Bob Ross gear out again. To be honest, after the last painting, I got hooked, and I've got some liquid white, big tub of it, so might as well use it. And let's see what I have done. Actually, before I press the play button, so we can watch me. I've covered the entire canvas with a very thin coat of liquid white. Liquid white makes the canvas slick, and I'll show you. So we're on our way. Crisscross strokes in the corner, starting in the corners and then working down towards the horizon. And then what happens is the liquid white picks up the blue and gets lighter and lighter. So firstly, I have to apologise for my camera angle. I was trying to get as straight onto the painting as possible, not thinking about my great big shoulder getting in the way, which is a bit annoying. So starting at the corner, going across, I realise I'm in the way, move out of the way, and then get back in the way again. I'll have to make sure I move that. But I thought I would put this out anyway because it still shows you the process. I'll just have to make sure I move my camera around a little bit. So I just use these crisscross strokes because it helps to blend the colour. It blends on the canvas with the liquid white. And I've gone into a little bit more. I'm using Prussian blue and midnight black for the sky, just to make it a bit darker. I want this to be a little bit of a darker day than the last one I did. I used phthalo blue on the last one in the background, so it's a bit brighter. So to knock out your brush, you can use a paper towel like this. You don't want to be whacking your bristles on anything, knocking paint all over the place. This is another way of doing it. Or you can get one of these beater racks and put it in like a bin, and you can beat the paint out like that. I also do that sometimes, but I had my beater rack outside because I didn't want to clean my brushes on the inside, and I left it out there and forgot about it. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just use my paper towels. No worries. Works well. Contains it. You don't get a mess. So I've got myself a cup of tea on the go. Apologies, I'm going to drink this while I'm watching. I won't go. Oh no, I just did. Oh, damn it. So I went across the canvas with very light strokes to get rid of the brush strokes. And now I've gone into my fan brush. Got titanium white. It's a number 3 Bob Ross fan brush with a load of titanium white on there. I didn't load enough. You forget some of the techniques when you haven't done it regularly. Cause I traditionally paint as well, so I forget sometimes. But you see straight away when you're doing it, you're like, oh, I need more paint. So I'm just doing like trying to work out how to get out of the way. I'm just loading my brush both sides with titanium white and a little bit of alizarin crimson. There's a little bit of alizarin crimson. I just want some like stringy clouds in the sky because when I was out walking the other day, there was a lot of stringy clouds. Oh, get that shoulder out of the way. I have to move that camera. Just needs moving very slightly. Never mind. So using the 2-inch brush, or you can use the 1-inch brush, it doesn't really matter. Just going over that, going across it. Very lightly, just going across that. So this is real time. I thought about speeding it up, but if you wanted to paint along, then you can. So I'm using the knife now, and I've got this mountain mixture that comes in a tube, mountain mix, and I'm using that for my mountain, except what I'm thinking is I start really pale at the background and then start getting darker, darker, darker as you come forward. So I'm mixing white in with the colour and then cut across, little roll of paint, look, little roll of paint, and then you're focusing on the outside edge, and as you press, so you press quite hard and then watch the outside edge. That's all you're really focusing on at this point. There we go. And then you scrape off the excess paint, so you just leave like a stain on the canvas, and then you can use like a 1-inch brush or a 2-inch brush to pull out the paint. I've gone for my 1-inch brush. I actually used that brush to put the liquid white on because I'm trying not to make too much of a mess. And when I start throwing that 2-inch brush around, paint flies everywhere. So I thought I'll use the 1-inch brush to soften. So it does two things when you do that. When you're pulling out the excess paint, so you haven't got a load of paint on there, which will make it harder for the next layer to stick. So you're pulling it out, and also you can design your mountain while you're doing it. So I'm thinking this side is highlight side, and this side is, and the other side shadow side, and you can do that. I was considering blending that whole thing. I mean, I went quite high when I blended. So I'm knocking off the paint on a paper towel and then loading my knife again, and I've got a mixture of the mountain mix with white, and I've not brightened it too much because I want that to still stay in the background. So it's just a almost sky color, almost. That just gives you an indication of something going on back there. Like I say, I don't want too much contrast or anything. It's a good way of creating the illusion of light and dark, not light and dark, depth in a painting, is to avoid using your contrast straight away. Use your contrast where you want the viewer to see, to the illusion of that's further forward, or that's a focal point. Use it in two ways. So I'm thinking now I need another layer of mountains. Just adding a little bit of a tiny bit lighter there. Needed a little bit. It was all going away a little bit. And then just very lightly soften it, tap it, mist it away. So you do all that work and then you almost get rid of it again. But yeah, I was thinking while I was doing this, I need another layer of mountains in front of that that's slightly darker, only slightly. So a little less white in the mountain mix, and then we can start creating another layer of mountains. Do a mountain range. Oh, that's it. That's the end of my cup of tea. So just creating that shape again. Thinking mountains. Study them. Have a look at them. Have a look at some of Bob Ross's paintings. Have a look at some pictures of mountains on the internet. I mean, there's all kinds of different mountains. It's amazing, really. I do love mountains. There's none where I am, though. Where I live, it's flat as a pancake, mostly. It's not very mountainous in England. You have to get in the car and go up north, beyond the wall. So I'm using that again, using it, thinking about the lights and the shadows. Obviously the light's coming from the right again, and the shadows the left. So I'm just thinking like that when I'm pulling those out. But yeah, it's amazing how you can create this effect so quick. I couldn't do this as quick as this with traditional methods. That's one benefit of this style is it's so much fun. It's easy. Once you get used to the materials, it becomes easy and you're just playing around and enjoying yourself. There's no stress, you're not worried. If you have any little mistakes, well, you know what Bob Ross says, happy accidents, so just go with them and just enjoy yourself. And that's what I try and do when I'm painting in this method. Just enjoy myself and be creative and see what happens. Because you can always change it, and worst comes to the worst, pull out your landscape knife, scrape all the paint off, get a little bit of paint thinner, and you can wash your canvas and then start again. There's no worries. It's a very light pressure when you use the knife. I think that's the one thing that most people struggle with when they first start this style. They can't get the paint to break. And there's two reasons why it's not happening for you. Number one, the paint you're using is just too dry. I mean, opposites. The paint you're using is not dry enough, I should say. It's just too wet. And you find it's just not breaking. Now, there's different ways you can do that. If you haven't got the Bob Ross materials, which I'm using at the moment, so it doesn't make it easier, to be fair. But if you haven't got it, then to make your paint work a bit better, there are impasto mediums out there. I've seen ways in which you can take some of the oil out of the paint by putting your paint on a bit of cardboard. There's all sorts of different methods out there. I've tried impasto mediums and they've worked okay before. But the Bob Ross titanium white, if I get that, I don't have any worries. So I don't have to get anything. I just use that. So sometimes it's just easier to buy the right stuff, I guess. Work out the same, won't it? You buy one tube of Bob Ross paint or a tube of white and impasto medium. I don't know. So what I've done here is when I mix my colour, I leave it marbly, so it's not all just mixed in one colour, and then you get these different changes. I've gone for the shadow side now, which is the mountain mix with less white than is in with my shadow colour, basically. And I'm having trouble with this great big knife. But I'm forcing myself to use it because I always think, I could use the detail knife. I'll get in there really easy. But then I'll get a bit lazy and I'll always use the detail knife. And I should really be really good with the landscape knife. I shouldn't have to worry and go, oh, this is a bit troublesome. I'll use the detail knife all the time. I mean, the detail knife is great, and I really like it. You get in these smaller areas a lot easier than with this big thing. So very light pressure. I put a little bit more white into that colour, I think. It was looking a bit dark in places. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a seascape soon. So if you're enjoying these, then you will hopefully enjoy that as well. So I've got a little bit more white in my colour, and just sparkle some of these areas. Try not to overdo it though. Really light pressure and just let the canvas take what it needs. Just on these higher bits of paint it takes a bit more, so that's good. Allow that to happen. It's good fun doing these mountains. Because I always use a brush. I think I said that in the last episode. I always use a brush to paint. I never really use a knife, so it makes me think maybe I should use a knife more when I do paintings. I mean, Turner and Constable, my heroes, they use knives, so... I just knocked that brush out then. So I picked up a little bit of sap green in with my mountain mix, I think. Oh, I'm not there yet. I'm just misting. Just tapping the base of the mountain and then lifting up just to soften it all. Soften. And then I pick up some sap green. And then I start putting in, like at the base of the mountain, I'm thinking there's grassy areas. So I've not done this painting before, and this is the first go. So I was thinking as I was going, thinking to myself, right, try not to fill this canvas up too full with mountains. I know I need to practice mountains, but I had an idea in my head of what I wanted. And once I start doing mountains, the problem is I can't stop, and the full canvas is mountains. Good for practice, but... So I've got some sap green in with my blues, and I'm just tapping, trying to create with the base. I don't want that to be too dark yet either, because it's quite far away. I'm just lifting up, so it could be little trees, who knows. Just tapping. Bit more colour. Tap into a bit more and then you get another level, another plane of land. So you get like multiple planes of land there. You see my canvas is wobbling a little bit because I'm only using a French easel actually. It's quite sturdy. What I like about the French easels, I don't know if you've ever seen one or used one yourself, is that you've got a drawer so you can put your paints in, or what I do is I rest my palette on top of it. I quite like it. And I like to sit down and paint. When I'm out painting in the woods or in the fields, I'm usually stood up. So when I'm at home, comfortable and relaxed, I just like to sit down, have a cup of tea, and enjoy my painting. So in for this big mountain here in the front. So I'm using the pure mountain mix with a little bit of Prussian blue and midnight black in it as well. Really darken it. So it's definitely in front. Pressing on hard. And then scrape off the excess paint. I was like, a bit bigger. Let's go a bit bigger. Then I'm pulling it across, just focusing on the outside edge. Focusing on the outside edge, a bit more paint. Alright, shapes. Thinking about the shapes. put a bit more dark in there because I really wanted that to come forward in comparison to what's behind it. So it's just a bit of a game of playing with light and then a bit darker and a bit darker. Just go in with it. Suddenly that mountain got a bit bigger. There we go. I think I went a little bit overboard with that. But in my head I kept telling myself I need to make it darker. It's a really big old 2-inch brush. Just pull that out. I really like that shape that's there, but I think I messed that up. I remember thinking when I did it, I like the way that looks. And then pull out the other side. So if you're following me on Facebook or Instagram, you'd have seen this painting. Because I try and post my paintings on there. I tend to post just paintings on Facebook. If you're following my Instagram, I post everything on there. Even my awful sketches. So if you want to see everything, Instagram, Jason Bowen Oils. If you're just interested in painting, then Facebook's probably the best. I'm fairly new to Instagram, really. I quite like it though. Get to see other people's paintings, see what everyone else is doing. So I'm just blending that a little bit into the base. Softening it. Thinking, right, getting ready for my highlights. I enjoy putting snow on mountains. It's so much fun. Oh, I'm back. I was just thinking, I don't remember getting up and leaving. I think I was checking my paints. I think I needed more white. When I used to teach classes, because you're buying all the materials, or it's what I did when I was teaching them as a Bob Ross CRI, and you do your own classes. I was buying the materials, and when someone messed their mountain up, say they couldn't do that, and they just splodged it on, I would have to scrape it off for them and get them to do it again. And then every time you're using a bit more paint, so you're eating into your profits. And because when I was teaching, I wanted everyone to do a really good painting, so it tended to destroy my profits, really, to the point when there wasn't any. But at the same time, people were going home with really good paintings, so that's what it was all about. Yeah, very light pressure, look, very light pressure, very light. No pressure, just like a whisper, really soft. You become really sensitive to the feel of the paint coming off your knife, really sensitive to it. Feel it just very lightly, just shoo, like wielding a sword. I could just imagine skiing down there. I've never skied before, but it'd look fun. So I've gone into some of the blues, just very lightly. Same idea, very lightly, I just sort of push into the highlight colour and then pull down. I was just getting in that area. That sometimes you need like a little the detail knife to do that. But oh, that was a good one. Could do with a bit more dark in there. I say that because I fix it later, and the camera wasn't on. But you'll see. Just very lightly, thinking of the angles. Think of the angles. Always thinking of the shapes, the angles. Got the 2-inch brush out again and tapping away, letting that all mist up at the base. Because when you start tapping it, it all mixes together. And there's liquid white on there, so that helps when, because you tap and it mixes with liquid white and automatically gets lighter. I'm just softening it. Soften. Create that mist. See, what happened was I created too big a mountain again. And I'm running out of space. And that's where I wanted to do some trees and things. I could see a little bit of a ridge there, so I brought that out. It's one of those happy accidents. So I need to, what I thought afterwards is I could have used some black gesso at the base of this canvas and then put a bit of liquid clear on it, and then it would be dark at the base. I think if I was going to paint this again, maybe I would do that. I'm not sure really. This worked out in the end, so if you're watching it and thinking about, how's best to paint that, that is another way of doing it, because you could block in the base with black gesso, and you could even paint in these trees with black gesso, so you know where the line is, and then you've got kind of a marker for yourself. So the trees you just pull down and then do lots of different heights. Make sure there's a lot of paint on there. I've seen some really there's too much white. Oh, it's funny seeing that. I've seen my own paintings like that. I've like full paintings I've scraped off like that. So what I was doing there is I was getting rid of the liquid white. It was I mean, it would have been alright, but at the time I want to get this painting done quick, and I wanted it to be dark, so I can use less paint if I just scrape it off and then whack my dark in. Just use the 2-inch brush. Get some nice darks in there. Want some darks. You see now, that's starting to come forward because that's the darkest area. It does work really nice. And then start putting in them trees again. Really load your brush though, don't be shy. Get loads of paint on there. I had quite a big blob of mountain mix, so I didn't mind. You could even use your knife and make these little tree shapes. You could do it with any of the brushes. The fan brush, it just works so well for doing that. I really enjoy using it. So I thought, I really wanted to bring a cloud over the mountain. Just add another dimension to it. So this cloud is coming forward. It's coming forward, look. Over the mountain. You can do that. You could have mountains sitting in amongst the clouds. It just a bit more interest. So I'm just very lightly just pulling straight up, and you can have the indication of a little bit of light, or maybe there's tree trunks there. Now I'm just throwing in some more dark, creating that shape of the land. Thinking about the land now, I am. The land mass. Got a load of trees. A whole forest. There's a whole forest there. And then what I want is some grass in front. So I can send this quite far back. A good way of creating distance is to have a person in it. So if you painted a little person climbing that mountain, suddenly you would know how big the mountain is. But if you had a really big person in there, it would make the mountain really small. So it's a good way of creating scale is to have a person, and it's just a little tip. I don't paint a person in this one. It's just something I thought you might be interested in. You might already know it. You probably do. So I think I'm grabbing paint. Probably should have edited this bit out. I'm grabbing some yellow ochre and Indian yellow. Yellow ochre and Indian yellow and sap green. And I'm throwing that all in my mountain mix, making a grassy, sort of autumny grassy colour, ready for the next layer. And I'm going to use the 2-inch brush as well. I'm whacking the paint. There we go. I knew I was. You can tell I'm hitting the paint because the whole painting shakes. So if it doesn't stick, if you find that your paint doesn't stick, you just put a little bit of liquid white in with it. A bit of liquid white, and then, as you know, as you probably heard, a thin paint sticks to a thicker paint. So if you've thinned your paint a little bit with a little liquid white like I did, it's just going to sit on top. And don't tap too hard, just allow that paint to just pull off. Tap fairly lightly. If you tap really hard, it's just going to all mush together. So you're kind of putting paint on top of paint. So be nice and light. Every now and then I create a little bit of a ridge. Just another way, creating that separation. Another plane of land. Makes the painting go a bit deeper, like you can walk in it. And that's good. That's the kind of illusions we want to create when we're painting. Now I've got to say, when I first started painting in this style, I never thought I'd be able to paint anything like this. So if you first started and you're watching this thinking, well, I'll never be able to do that. You can do that. If I can do it, you can do it. It's just a bit of practice, a bit of time to get used to the materials, and then away you go. And you can be developing pictures and landscapes and seascapes and anything you like. And it's great fun. So I just made a bit of water, just pulled down the white and then lightly went across, and suddenly there's water there. Now I could have left it like that, had kind of a still water. I just thought I'd put a bit more land in that bit. Just to keep that water in. Don't want the water to flow out the edge of the canvas. And pull a little bit of the green in there. The reflected light. It's amazing how easy it is to create water, isn't it? And this technique is one of the simplest things. It's when you start moving the water around, that's when it gets a bit more difficult. Well, it is for me anyway. So I'm just pulling down with a brush full of paint. I'm going to do an evergreen tree. So corner of the brush and just push down and come down and down and down. Loads of paint, loads of paint. Bring it all the way down to the ground. You don't want to be painting a giant tree. If you left that tree high up the canvas, it looked like the biggest tree in the world. I've seen paintings like that, so watch out, don't make a giant tree. Two nice evergreen trees there, planted. And I thought to myself, oh, it'd be nice to have a little bit of detail in some of these trees in the background. Pull down, corner of the brush, just a little bit of detail. Just here and there. A few trees a bit closer, a bit bigger. They stand out. That tree, it really needed something on it, didn't it? That one was standing out. It was shouting, saying, I'm bigger than the rest. I'm the strongest tree. So there we go. Now, what I was thinking, I was like, quite like the water, but I want to have a bit more fun with the water. And I was also thinking I need to highlight the tree. Do I want to have bushes? And there we go. Decided to put some bushes in with a 1-inch brush, just putting some shapes in there. Some dark. So you need the dark in there for the light to show. You want the dark. You always get dark at the base of trees and bushes anyway, where the light can't reach. So this is a easy way of creating that effect. Now I need to highlight the tree. I put a little bit of sap green in with the mix. A little bit of liquid white to make it stick. Or you could use a bit of liquid clear or a bit of linseed oil. As long as the paint is thin. Thinner than what's down there. Like I said earlier. A thin paint sticks to a thicker paint. So I just load in my brush. Oh, I went for the water. Just splashing in some water. Imagining it fell into there and splashed and comes down. It's moving. There's loads of rocks in there, so it's just pouring around the rocks and splashing and I'd have a bit of fun. You could paint in some rocks and stones and all sorts in that water. You could even do it with gesso beforehand and then cover the blue on top. I've done that before. Works really well. There's all sorts of things you can do. I'll try and do more episodes where I do all other things. I get carried away doing that. I could be doing that until the whole thing's white. And try not to overdo it too much. Just add some movement in there. I'm imagining little rocks that the water's splashing onto and pouring down, and I keep sitting back and having a look to see if I like it or not. And if I don't like it, I just get the 2-inch brush and pull it all down and pull it across, and then it's all back to how it was. Just having it splashing here and there. Just trying to create a simple effect of making the water rush down a little bit. So a little bit green in the colour and very lightly. Thinking about where the highlight is over that one side. Just putting a bit of green on there. And then I get a little bit of brown on the knife. I think I do it now, yeah, to make the tree trunk. A little bit of burnt umber that was. Just putting a little bit of a indication of a tree trunk. And then you can put some of the highlights on top of that, just to make that trunk go back into the painting. Okay, and then with a 1-inch brush, dipping into a bit of liquid white, and then into all our colour, the yellow ochre, the Indian yellow, the sap green, the mountain mix. It's all a bit of a load of different colours, and then I'm pulling in one direction and spin round and touch, push, touch and push. I ain't got quite enough paint on that one, I don't think. So I put in a bit more liquid white. More paint. You want to see little bushes on your palette when you do that. Very light there. Loads of paint now. Lots of paint. Push out lots of bushes. Very lightly. Okay, and then using the knife you can scrape in some little sticks and twigs and things. Look for them dark areas, it's a good place to scrape it out. Some on this side, a few more. Just gives that bit of an effect of some bushes. And a bit of the grass again, just tidy it up a little bit. A bit of the grass. Tidy up them bases. And then I get into a little bit more light because I've got to think about the lights hitting this side more than the other side. So grab a bit more of that grass. And a little bit more. And then we have a finished painting. And I thought to myself, well, it'd be nice to have a few birds in the sky. A few little birds. Using the liner brush. Grab the liner brush and get some very thin paint. You want it almost thin as ink. Really thin. And you roll it. Nice and thin. And there we go. A little bird. Oh, 2 strokes. There we go. 1, 2. 3 little birds in the sky. And so there we go. There's a photo I took on my phone. It's closer in colour-wise. That is the closest colour-wise. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed painting it. I hope you enjoyed watching this one, and hopefully I will see you at another episode. So thanks very much for watching. Cheers, bye.